Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining us. My name is Tim Wheaton with MMA Sucka, and today I have a man joining the show who truly does not need an introduction to MMA fans. No matter when you got into the sport, you know this man. Bas Rutten, how you doing today, man?
Doing great. You see, that's a nice way to get introduced. So it's a good way to start the day.
Well, that's the thing. I know. I'm like, what am I going to introduce you as? Like the guy from EA MMA or the guy from Pride or the guy from the King of Pancrase, the UFC heavyweight champion? Like, everyone knows you, man.
Good. I appreciate that. Yeah, that was good. In the martial arts world, I always have the perfect amount of knownness, if that's even a word, you know, because I see some guys like a Kevin James or just the people, or the guys, they cannot even pump gas, you know, and I go, oh, this is perfect. Like one every 50 people says, what's up?
Well, yeah, you're very famous within the community, but you know, you're not a Justin Bieber, and I think that's probably a good thing. But you are living down in California. How's the weather and everything down there today?
Today it's actually a little overcast, but normally, yeah, California weather, truth to be told, can't beat that, right? It's really great weather.
Man, life is good. Now, we got some stuff going on in Karate Combat right now. So there's going to be one event every 2 weeks. The next one is on May 28th with Luis Roca is going to be challenging for the title. And I'm excited for this one, but tell me a little bit more about these guys. Scrivers, I believe he's from Latvia, is going to be defending the championship. Can you tell me a little bit more about what's going on here?
Yeah, so Edgar Scrivers, he's one of those demolition Kyokushin kind of guys, you know, comes forward, knows one speed, full speed. That's it. You'll never see him back up, always coming forward. He actually beat Hoja before. So Hoja's been since then constantly been telling, because, you know, Scrivers says it's an excuse, with weight cuts and all that stuff, but Rocha believes that he can really, truly win this time. And but Scrivers, the good thing about Scrivers is he's not super outgoing, but he's the opposite, like a Fedor Emelianenko. Only Fedor wouldn't say the things he says. He goes like, I'm much too strong. I got very forced. I just break him mentally, boss. That's why I win fights. And then he pulls a little smile. I love that stuff when they do that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be a great fight.
Dude, some of those, like some of the like Eastern Europeans and Russians, like Igor Vovchanchin's another example of just like, man, are you human? Like, are you literally a human being? Or are you just cold as ice, right?
You know, this Vovchanchin, I saw him. I was doing, I believe it was in 2000. Was doing maybe even 1999. I was doing commentating for the show, and Igor Vovchanchin was a tournament. And the smallest guy he fought in an 8-man tournament, and the smallest guy he fought was like 320 pounds. That was the lightest guy he fought at that time. And he fought 3 of them, and he knocked them all 3 out. And I go like, well, that Igor guy, I think we're going to hear from him, you know, and then he could the Pride Fighting Championships, he became one of the main guys.
But it's just insane. I mean, we're going to get back to Karate Combat in a bit, but some of those guys, I feel like, of that era, and you were the exception to this rule because you recognized of like, I'm having some issues here. But some of these guys were too tough for their own good. And like the example I always use, I spoke with Antonio Inoki, and he said, I wanted to fight Igor because it was dangerous. And like, that wasn't a good idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, but you talked about shit. Antonio Inoki. I mean, this is a guy who, whatever challenge comes his way, he's going to grab it, you know, and he sees it as exciting, you know. So, yeah, he's a whole different animal, that guy.
Different era of fighters back then. But back then, we also had a lot of fighters, especially with kind of the prime of K1 kickboxing, a lot of very good Kyokushin Karate kickboxers, guys like Francisco Filio, Andy Hug, just amazing Kyokushin Karate kickboxers. But they didn't have an option to kind of go into any other higher league. So they went into K1 kickboxing. Now Karate Combat is kind of changing that, right?
Yes, exactly. Now we got these guys, full contact karate with Olympic level karate guys, karate-kas. And what's not to love, because all these guys, you'll see them since the beginning of time, you know, like 4 years ago they started, but they got me early in, thankfully, that was nice. And then you saw literally, you see the evolvement. You saw guys like hitting somebody one time and connecting and stopping, you know, because that's what they're used to. It's point karate. And then they realized that their opponent just kept coming, and they go, oh crap. So everybody started cross-training now, and they all started boxing, kickboxing on the side. So now we see these high-level guys throwing combinations, wrapping it up with kicks. It's a beautiful thing to see.
So how does it differ? So how does Karate Combat differ, not from kickboxing, but from regular kind of Kyokushin Karate competitions? What is the biggest differences between these two?
With Kyokushin, it's almost fighting in a phone booth. You can't describe it like that. You see two guys, because they're mentally so freaking strong, that's like they're standing across each other and they're just rolling out on that spot. That's what they do. Not a lot of people moving backwards and forwards. That, you know, for the people who know about it, they love that. But for the regular people who don't understand it, they can kind of come over a little weird, because it's with a gi as well. There's a lot of kicking and thinking. You don't see a lot. And what Karate Combat did, they tried to avoid that kind of fighting. So they said everything is going to be long. It's going to be long uppercuts. Now they allow uppercuts. In the beginning, they didn't allow uppercuts. They all wanted the long hooks and crosses and then kicks to the calves, not to the thighs, but to the calves, because that will keep the opponent further away, and then the people at home can see the beautiful technique. That was their way of thinking. And I thought in the beginning, I don't know about it, but now I'm freaking loving it. So I think that they really accomplished what they set out to do. And the rule set, and everybody knows the rule set. And we saw Ross Levine, you saw him last week coming over from Glory Kickboxing and doing really well in this organization as well. And he always fought with kicks to the thighs, and it was easy for him to simply not kick the thighs. So nobody has a problem with it. And for the people at home, I think it's a better view.
Well, yeah, he had, like, the gentleman that you're speaking about, he had one of the best knockouts. This was Ross Levine, and he had one of the best knockouts in Glory Kickboxing. A couple of years on the shelf, you know, due to COVID. It's not his fault. Now he came into Karate Combat and got one of the coolest knockouts there as well, right?
I mean, you saw how in control he was. I mean, he drops his opponent. For the people who don't know, who haven't watched the show yet, we have a 45-degree angle walls. And it's like in a pit, and those walls they can actually use to run up. And once a person falls against those, if he falls on the floor straight, that's considered down. Against the wall, you're not considered down. So anything goes from that moment. There's even a takedown rule that you can rain down strikes for 5 seconds, and already some fighters have been stopped with it. So what he did, he knocked the guy down, he fell against the wall, and then he decided to make a Nushiro Mowashi Yorangiri, that's what's called a spinning back kick to the head, while he was laying against that wall, and he connected with the heel. And later on, he said in the interview, my heel is hurting. So I know that I hit him hard. So, but for him to make that decision to wrap it up like that, that says something about his skill level.
Man, there's some cool fights in it. There's some really cool fights. And speaking of guys who were very good in Kyokushin Karate and didn't have anywhere to go, Rafael, I'm not going to say the name wrong, but Rafaela Gayev is fighting in just a couple of weeks here, and he's considered one of the greatest of all times in karate. What was the discussion like to get this guy out of Kyokushin Karate competitions and kind of get him into Karate Combat?
Well, for him, I think it was an easy thing, because in Kyokushin, cool, he can fight full contact. There's no punches to the face allowed, though in Kyokushin, but it's allowed, but also knees to the face. That's allowed in Kyokushin. Not in this, but he also did karate at the Olympics, which is not full contact. So for him to make that decision, okay, now finally I can start kicking people in their face for real and not get disqualified or lose. What we saw in the Olympics, right? One person got knocked out, he wins gold, and the person who knocked him out gets bronze. Silver, and that guy who knocked him out was actually from Karate Combat. So we've been trying to get that fight in Karate Combat, so they both know they can fight full contact. That would be a really great fight. So hopefully in the future we get it.
Man, could you imagine? That would be so much fun. I feel like we're always straddling the line of, like, we do want this to be a fight, but we also want a sport. And with those kinds of examples of, like, that guy was knocked out, he clearly didn't win, but according to the rules of the sport, you know, he lost. It's just a little bit silly. But yeah, now we're kind of at this really cool place where we're doing a lot of pure martial arts. But from where, you know, you started a few years ago, you were telling pure martial artists to get into MMA. Now we're asking MMA fans to, hey, maybe check out some pure martial arts stuff. What a weird circle we've gone in at this point, right?
It's always like that, you know, it's always going back and forth. You know, when fighting came out, bare knuckle, I thought everybody wants to see that. You know, yes, a lot of people want to see that. But then you go like, oh, now we got full contact karate with little tiny gloves. I mean, 4 ounce. I mean, these things are almost don't weigh anything. Glory Kickboxing. Once only was Glory Kickboxing there, you would think, since all these people who start booing at MMA events, those are your audience, you would think, right? But then it doesn't really catch on like we would expect it to catch on. And I think that Karate Combat is on the right track. I think they get a lot of views while you see the videos that are out there. It's for free. You know, you go on YouTube, you go to karate.com for the people at home. It's all free. You can check out past seasons, fights, find your the fighter that you like the most, do your homework a little bit, start following somebody. I'm going to come out with some really cool technique, which I cannot say. It's not karate technique related, but something else is going to happen. And once that happens, I think we're going to be the only organization on the planet that does that. I think a lot of people will follow it. Yeah, now I threw it out and I can't say it, so I feel sorry for you guys.
I know. You were like teasing, and you're like, I'm going to give you a scoop here, and you took it right away from me.
Take it away.
I was a bit surprised too. Karate Combat is really easy to watch. It was karate.com, but it's also on YouTube, it's on Facebook, it's on Instagram. I saw, I think in the US it's on ESPN Deportes. In Europe it's on like Eurosport. Like, where is it not being broadcast? Like, if you're not watching it, it is literally everywhere. It's every 2 weeks. There's 3 more events. There's one on June 11th, June 25th, and the most recent one will be coming up on May 28th. But yeah, it's going to be a fun little schedule for the next little while here. You're excited talking about this. If you were a bit younger, would this be something that you would be interested in doing?
Yeah, 100%, and especially at the very end, I got tendonitis, and most of the time it came from grappling. Sometimes it was also when I hit a heavy bag really hard, it would start the pain, but most of the time it's like muscling myself out of something. Like somebody has an arm bar pulling out, and I muscle myself out, and that's when that really stopped my career. So I think if I wouldn't have put strength, like pulling strength as much on my arms, I could have kept on fighting. Now, in mixed martial arts, I'm going to have to do it because it's mixed martial arts. We need to do it with the grappling. But in karate, I don't need to do it. So I thought, I could have worked around it. That's what I truly believe. So that would have been great. I'm trying to lure, of course, Stephen Thompson in now and George St. Pierre. Let's see if we can make a match up there. But with George, it's not really working. I think that he decided he wants to retire. But Stephen, this could be a good one.
Well, Stephen, so he started out in Chuck Norris's, I want to say WCL, where like, I forget some of the other gentlemen, but there was a lot of very notable fighters who started out in this league where it was like a little bit of karate, a little bit of kickboxing. And then he came into the UFC, and I always felt like him staying in something like a kick sport would have been more natural. Is there something on the table where he might be doing a karate exhibition? Like you're saying, maybe George St. Pierre. I don't think George would do that. I don't think he's.
Lyoto. We got Lyoto Machidas also.
Oh man, Lyoto's so cool as well. But yeah, who would you say? Let's say in a karate combat setting, in the virtual studio, it looks like Mortal Kombat, Stephen Thompson and George St. Pierre. What do you think of this one?
That would be a hard one because Stephen is really good at controlling the distance. Yet, a double leg takedowns are not allowed in karate combat. Otherwise, you would think that George is just going to shoot right away. I'm not saying that George is not going to strike. Of course, he's going to strike. But if he knows 100% certain that if he can take him to the ground, he will be very effective. But George is a great game planner. His team is great planning, so they will do that. And of course, Stephen, he wants to fight on distance and use his reach, and he's a very hard guy to take down. So that's a hard one. And since I work with both these guys, I'm not going to say anything about this fight.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're in the 9 to 5 office working with these guys. How much of like BS was it that George St. Pierre fought his whole career shaving his head, and then he starts working with you, and then he grows his hair out? What is
it?
This guy?
It's to annoy me. It's annoying me. He knows that I can't have the hair anymore, and it's just him for showing here. Look at me, old man. I still have hair. You have not. So we'll do something. I'll get him at a weak moment somehow, somewhere, and so there will be payback. There will be coming. I promise you that.
Absolutely, George. George. Oh, this guy. He's so nice. I hate him.
Unbelievable. This guy is everywhere, right? It's unbelievable. I mean, if you watch his Instagram, it's when is he home? I mean, he's flying all over the world. He's a very loved person, and rightfully so. It's very easy, pleasure to work with. It's great. So is Stephen Thompson and Lyoto Machida. I mean, having that traditional background, I think it does a lot. I'm not saying that a lot of mixed martial arts don't have that, but most of the time, the guys who have a traditional background, there's a little bit more respect. I always talk about this with the karate combat. There's guys in their faces, they're talking crap, and as soon as it's over, they step back, they bow at each other, they literally shake each other's hand, and then they walk over. 10 seconds ago, they were going to town. You see, but then there's still that respect. Okay, I might not like you as a person, but I really respect you as a fighter. So I enjoy that.
And I think it's so important in any sort of combat sport setting to really have that baseline of this is based in respect and honor, because the line between where a sport stops and where it's just a fist fight is very small. But if you always have respect and honor, and we're doing the sport, you know, with sportsmanship, it is so vital to have that level of respect, correct?
Yeah, and why not? You can do it. You know, yes, you can talk crap, and then you bring it back a little bit by being respectful. That shows what kind of real person you are. You know, my daughter just had like a 10 on her essay, and she wrote about negativity and positivity, and your brain gets activated with negative emotions much more than it does with positive emotions. So what people ought to be also are pulled towards anger and the bad news and bad this and bad that, because that makes our brain alive, so to say, and that's why they're watching the whole time. And it's super annoying. So in fact, so they know that if you start screaming and you do crazy stuff, you know, you're simply going to have more people watching. But it's a shame that you cannot do it as in karate combat. You can do the same screaming, same everything, and then once it's done, you set your piece, you set your piece. Now let's respect each other, right? But then for some people, it goes, yeah, but then other people who are watching, they think it's not real. You know, I go, yeah, but don't think about what other people think. If you start thinking like that, I mean, I like blue, you like red. I mean, everybody has a different opinion. Who cares? You know, think about you as a person. Think about your soul. You know, think about being a respectful example to the kids who are watching at home.
Well, yeah, and I think a really good example of this is someone like yourself and Kevin Randleman, where you and Kevin Randleman had a very high stakes heavyweight fight. And then you continued to call his fights for years after the fact, and it was never a big deal. It was never a problem. And then seeing where both of you gentlemen ended up, it was a very good thing to completely bury the hatchet and treat it as a sportsman-like thing, correct?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he started with my nickname. That's where El Guapo comes from. He started that whole thing. We became friends, you know, and we just have always had a really great time. He's like the personality-wise, he's the same as me. Like we're both freaking on the edge. Woo, 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 woo. He's just an unbelievable person, man. I mean, always there to help people, and the things he did, you know, when he passed away, and you hear all the stories for these people that he helped online, and you start sending in emails and messages. It's, yeah, he was something special. I can tell you that.
No, yeah, the fame never got to him. He was always a grounded person who worked hard. But yeah, he's one of the good guys of the sport. Now, speaking of, you were saying I would get into karate combat if I was a little bit younger because it's healthy for me. Let me ask you a question. And I've been curious about this for years because it never really made sense to me. So I'll paint you the picture of that. You were a kind of Dutch kick-based fighter participating in Pancrase, and you had to kind of learn submissions and learn grappling. At the very same time, was a very good K1 kickboxing going on just like down the block from you guys. Why did you never just get into kickboxing? Like, to me, it always didn't make sense. And I was like, man, Bas Rutten would absolutely kill in kickboxing. Why did you never get into it?
Well, okay. First of all, when I was kickboxing in Holland, I didn't have the click yet. And what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of people who can fight really well in the dojo, but doing it under pressure, it's a whole different animal. Now, I know Peter Ertz since he was 14 years old. We go way back. You know, and I saw him. He had it immediately from the lumberjack. Exactly, you're wearing it. Yeah. He had always everything under control. He was fighting in the fight just like he was fighting in training. I didn't. With me, I was very powerful, explosive, so I just knocked a lot of people out in the beginning of the first round. One fight, I think, from the 9 wins, 8 knockouts in the first round, 1 in the second round. But then I took a fight against a bigger guy, like a big name, which I didn't know anymore because I was drunk when I took that fight. And they called me 2.5 weeks before the fight, 3 weeks maybe. Or was it 3? 3.5 weeks before the fight, they called, they asked me what to send the posters to. I go, what posters from the fight? Who's fighting? You. I go, who am I fighting? Frank Lotman. I go, the animal? That was his nickname? Yeah. I go, oh shit. When did I say that? And then I realized I actually committed to that. So I go, okay, I'm going to do it because I knocked all the other guys out. But Frank was a whole different animal. Yeah. This is a guy who was like, I think 41-0 with like 37, 38 knockouts, like the animal, right? So I shouldn't have taken that fight because I wasn't at that level yet. Now, once I when I went to Pancrase from the very first show on, I don't know what happened to me. And I'm literally, if people could tap into my mind during the fight, what I'm thinking, I'm literally going like, what the hell is going on? I see everything, I hear everything. I started acting in certain things. And while I'm acting these things, I go, why am I doing this? It was the most intense thing there ever was. And then suddenly I flourished. Then I became the fighter that I was in the gym, you know, and then I started going up. So then, of course, after when that started happening, people also like you, they would say, why don't you go to kickboxing?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, the lightest guy in the K1 is probably 245 pounds. I was at that time under 200 pounds. And that was even because I grappled a little bit in the power trade. If I would solely do kickboxing, I think I'm going to be like 190. And then to face against these monsters like Ernesto Hoost, Peter Urs, Davey Borjanski, freaking Sammy Shields, 7 feet tall. Yeah, if that's going to be a tournament in one night, guess who's going to get the most damage? This guy right here, because they're all machines, So, no, I bow respectfully to those guys. They're really good. I'm happy I trained with them. I do really well in training. I can tell you that. But, competing at that level, those guys are different animals. They really are.
And that's such a good example of exactly what I was saying about you. You were very reasonable about, like, you knew your body. Whereas some of these guys, like, I don't want to be rude, but like guys like Peter Urs and Semi Shields and Remy Bonyaski all fought well outside of the years that they should have been. Like Peter Urs fought like 2 years ago or something like that. And he was an old man 10 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But that's, everybody tells me all the time, you're so smart, you stop, but I got to give that up to the Lord, because he just gave me a whole bunch of injuries. And I simply couldn't fight anymore, because I would have been the same knucklehead. I would have kept on fighting. And eventually I had such a great record leaving, like 22 fights, not a loss in my last 22 fights. Great way to stop. But if I would have continued, I would have no injuries. I'm going to lose. Those guys have my age, who started training when they're freaking 10 years old. When I had my first fight, they started training, you see? And then I go, whoa, they're born in 93. And I started fighting in 93. So you're going to lose because you can't train as hard anymore. And mixed martial arts, there's so many ways to win. And so you have to work on everything. The wrestling, it's kicking my butts, my knees, my tendonitis. No, I'm happy that I got a bunch of injuries, which I hated at the time. But now I see it. It was given to me for a reason. And now I have a really beautiful record to leave out. And to left the beautiful world of mixed martial arts.
I think it really helped your legacy a lot, because the things that you did after you were active in combat sports were absolutely massive. Like, the Pride calling, I think more people may know you from the Pride calls than they do maybe from your fighting career. What was some of your favorite, and I'll give you mine, but what were your favorite calling moments in Pride FC? Mine was Shogun, who was 2005 run. The supernova. Shogun. The smile tells the story. I'll never forget that. That 2005 run made me the fan I am today. It was life-changing for me. What were some of your favorites?
Well, we were up with the Nogueira brothers, and they're so freaking tough. And then, of course, Mirko Krokop and Fedor Emelianenko, Quentin Jackson, man, when he came in, and what they did the very first time when he fought Sakuraba. First, he was in jail. They had to go to America to get him out of jail. Somebody ratted him out who didn't like him. It was a stupid thing. It was not even necessary.
Yeah, I remember that.
In front of the police station. Dude, they showed that picture in the newspaper. Cover of the newspaper, that fight was so big. Then they let him lose 26. I'm saying 26 pounds, couldn't even be more. And it was something insane that he had to lose before the fight. And then pulling off a performance like that against Sakuraba the very first time. I remember when I pulled him to the center, because he was the King of the Cage champion, right? And Stephen Quarters and myself, we both talked to him afterwards. And we said, dude, if you keep your crap together, you could be huge in this. What you just did against that guy, but I lost. I go, dude, like with all the things you went through, losing 26 pounds on the same day or something crazy, and then coming into late, all that stuff, animal. And then against Arona, that slam, everybody knows. It's like the Anthony Pettis kick, Those are things that in 1,000 years from now, they still will be there. People go, did you never saw that? Oh, what's this? And they go back to time. That was the greatest thing about the show, and the packages they had, and on every fighter, which they wouldn't want to show in America for some reason. I have no clue why. But that's, if you saw the original show, it was so beautiful and so well put together. We just had a great time doing it.
It was, and the funny thing about Pride FC, everyone I talked to about it, whether they were directly involved or indirectly involved, it's been gone longer than it ever existed. And the other organizations like Dream and Ryzen have been around for longer. And they haven't had that same impact that Pride did, where we're still talking about those, like the Arona Slam and stuff like that today. Like, there was a little bit of magic in Pride, and there's no other way to define that.
It was, I always give this example. I remember this is before the UFC got really big. And Dana came to watch because when Chuck Liddell was fighting, and he came to introduce Chuck. So Chuck wasn't fighting on that card yet. And it started, and I don't know what show it was, and the pieces came out, and the music, Saitama Super Arena, 48,000 people, I mean, completely packed. And I remember I'm looking back from my table, and I see Dana standing, he's literally with his mouth open, and he catches me looking at him, and he goes like, it's just crazy. I go, right? I mean, it's insanity. And then the boom boxes underneath the cage or the ring at that time. You know, I mean, the sound, where we were sitting, I mean, we get free massages, man, from the boom boxes. Water drilled through your body. I mean, if people would know, we did 7-hour shows or 8-hour shows. There were moments that I'm talking on air and I'm literally peeing. I literally have bottles with me, and I had a little curtain here in front of the table I would put over there. And I would lean over and get a Gatorade bottle. Somehow that works, right? And then if people would only knew, but you had to, because there's no way you can, you know, if you sit there for 7 hours and you drink some coffee before, you will have to pee. So yeah, those moments, but they make it nice, right? They make it always fun.
Well, it was a 7-hour broadcast, but it didn't stop there. You guys had an after show that the details are a little foggy from everyone I ask about the after show. It's like, how late were some of these Pride FC post-fight events?
Oh, they would just do it after the show. You know, most of the time we would record also things before. But if we had like if Antonio Inoki was there, you know, for instance, then, you know, there will be a party. I mean, I forget his name. It'll pop up in a little bit. Sonny Chiba. I met Sonny Chiba there, dude. That was so cool to meet freaking Sonny Chiba. I used to watch it. It sounds that he makes, you know, with the karate, so badass, and with the X-ray vision. That's where Tarantino has it from. You know, you hit somebody and then you see the X-ray, you see the skull break, and that was all Sonny Chiba stuff. You know, so to meet all these people, and once they're there, you have the after parties, and then they come, of course, with cameras and do these fun things. I remember Antonio Inoki was there, and they heard about me that I was a fast beer drinker, but he was the best and he could beat me. And I go, no, I don't want to do it. So, oh, you're afraid? I go, no, I'm afraid to beat him, and I don't want to embarrass him in front of everybody else. So, but I said this on purpose because now, of course, he wants to do it. And it was funny because I think it was Rico, the UFC champion heavyweight.
Rodriguez.
Jeez, I'm mixing up Chaparelli. I'm trying to go. Sorry. He was there. Then, Inoki was there, and myself. He had these big beers.
Yeah.
And they said, and everybody goes, and go. And I go, and I put it down. And I go, see, I know I win. And as soon as Rico put it down, he threw everything out again. And then the third one was Antonio Inoki. I say, I told you, I didn't want to beat you. And I just walked away. It was so funny. Reverse psychology. That's what it is. I don't want to do it because I don't want to beat you in front of the world. You know you're going to take the fight now, right? The best thing is.
Man, what a great story with Antonio Inoki. Like, he's an absolute, I mean, combat sports legend would be a little bit inaccurate, but the things that he did led to the start of Pancrase. And like, I don't know if it can directly connected to the UFC, but it directly connected to Pancrase, the things that he did in his career of like the pro wrestling he did was almost kind of similar to what you guys were doing in Pancrase. But the fight that he had with Muhammad Ali, of course, was a mixed rules contest that directly led, right?
And the Nippon Budokan, that was in the Nippon Budokan where I fought. That's where I won 2 world titles. Mm-hmm. You know, so for me, I watched that fight, what you're talking about right now. And Kings of the Square Ring, there was this documentary thing with Benny the Jet and all these guys are freaking insane. Gene LaBelle. And that fight was also in there. And I was 17, I think, when I saw that fight on video cassette. And if I would have known at that moment that I was going to win 2 world titles in that same building where Cheap Trick played I Want You to Want Me, right? How freaking cool is that? And then, he set it up. And I heard the ins and outs. You know that Ali spent 2.5, 3 weeks in the hospital after that in Japan,
I heard
right?
that. Yeah. I heard that from Josh Gross's book.
Yeah, because they start taking all his weapons away because they realize suddenly, oh, he's grappling, he's going to be done. So no more grappling, no more this, no more that. And the only thing he was allowed pretty much was kicking the thighs. And then Inoki came up with this super smart idea. Yes, for the people, maybe not that super exciting, because if he fell on the ground, Ali was never going to jump on top of him because then he was going to get submitted. So he would run in a low kick and then fall on the ground while he did the low kick. So there was no target. He couldn't hit the head every time. But he really messed up his leg. Yeah, it took a long time for him to get back from that.
But could you imagine if they negotiated a good rule set, like where like Pancrase would have started 20 years earlier? Like if they negotiated something where like, okay, you can do takedowns, you can do punches to the face on the ground, et cetera, these all adjustments. But instead it was just, it felt like a waste, because even like it was broadcast in the US at arenas and stuff like that. It was an opportunity that was still good looking back, but at the time it was kind of a wasted opportunity.
It really was. And then you have also the Milo Savage, I believe was his name, against Gene LeBell.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a boxer fighting a jiu-jitsu guy. And later on, they found out he had literally like metal in his gloves and all that stuff, and Gene choking him out. So yeah, those guys, they really set the scene. I went to train at the Inoki's dojo. This is a long time ago, but he was like 65 years of age or something at the time already.
Yeah.
And when I walked in, he was laying in the splits all the way forward with his belly on the floor. He was just stretching, and the guy's in incredible shape still till this day.
Just one of the coolest people to ever exist. However, Bas Rutten, it sucks that we were all running out of time here. See, this thing, we just kind of get into it, and then like time just flies here. We've done more than 30 minutes at this point. But my name's Tim Wheaton with MMA Sucka. Make sure to check out Karate Combat, which is coming up. It's just going to be on May 28th, June 11th, June 25th. It's every 2 weeks. Check it out on karate.com, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. But Bas Rutten, you get the last word here. So talk us on out of here. Where can the people find more? All that good stuff.
Yeah, karate.com, you mentioned it. Just go there. All the information you need to know, you will find there. What to watch on YouTube, what TV channel, it's all there. And you really want to tune in for that Scrivers fight against Hoxha, because that fight it's a rematch. Hoxha lost the first time, and he vowed revenge. And Hoxha trains with the Pitbull brothers. I mean, he was training at my gym with the Pitbull brothers. And I got to tell you, man, when I saw him strike, he was really doing well in the striking department. So I go like, okay, this is going to be a whole different animal fight. And you cannot miss it. So check it out. It's coming up on the 28th.
I'm really excited for it. And Bas Rutten, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Osu. That's what we're saying. For the people at home, it's OSU. So the Kyokushin guy, all these guys, Sam Greco, Andy Hook, all the people you talk, Filio, OSU comes from two words. Oshi means push, and Shinobu means endure. To push and to endure. And they put those three letters together, OSU. That's why it's Osu, and it's not Osu.
Is that correct?
Look at that. That's it.
What an honor. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
You're welcome, brother.